Hey guys, how you going? My name is VaulSC and welcome back to my continued coverage of the Bio-Heist infiNity ITS tournament that was on last week, where I played my Shasvastii for 5 rounds in some pretty bad missions, pretty interesting missions. And on day 2, game 4 was against our buddy Garth, aka YuJing, aka Elves from the forums. And he's playing as YuJing, Vanilla YuJing. It's the third game against Vanilla YuJing this tournament, and the mission will be Decapitation. Now, Decapitation obviously has been improved since the mess up in the previous season, where they didn't translate the Spanish to the English properly, and it was a terrible, terrible mission. It's still pretty bad. Because the player who has the first turn has an additional 4 inches in their deployment zone. The other player has to put their HVT, beyond 20 inches out from the table edge. It's extremely easy to kill your opponent's data tracker with your data tracker, and it's also pretty easy to grab your HVT and pull it back to somewhere safe, all in your first game round. And from then on, all your opponent can really do is beat you on army points, which is a draw, unless they've got some way of getting to your lieutenant. Having said that, sometimes what can happen is that one player can actually burst through and shoot everything down as the player with the second turn, and eventually find that HVT and kill it as well. So there is that. Speculative fire also can be pretty good for that long range kind of thing. But we're going to see how this plays out. It's going to be Shasvastii versus YuJing. Let's take a look. So my opponent actually did us the gracious accommodation here of providing the army list. So let's have a look through. Guangxi Control Device 4, Guangxi Mowang NCO Red Fury, and of course in the other group you've got the Daoying Lieutenant 2 Hacker. That's a pretty standard, strong way to go with YuJing at the moment, is playing that Mowang NCO. I have never fully come around to him, even though he does benefit from those 2 additional orders. Sometimes it's better to go with a piece that has some sort of mods, either the MSV way or the camo state, that kind of thing. So I still kind of prefer the Hack Tower or the Sien Warrior, but he's running the Mowang. The new model is really, really cool, so don't blame people for trying that out. Rushi, pretty staple, undercosted model in YuJing. Zhuang with the Mad Traps for 20 points. He's good. He's solid. I personally prefer the Canren, because with the Canren you can take the Mad Traps and you have the Hollow Echo templates for detonating the enemy Mad Traps, and he's just better at fighting out in the midfield than Zhuang is. And of course you've got the additional deployment range, so you can actually put the Mad Traps in a wider variety of spots as well. Chai Yakong standard, Liberto Mine Layer, pretty much a must for anything that can take Libertos. They are way undercosted at the moment, as people have complained about on the forums correctly. Having a look at the Spec Ops here, I should probably move my face cam a little bit just so we can see what he's taken. Doctor Engineer, Mine Layer, and a Breaker Pistol, +1 whip. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, if your lieutenant's already going to be a hacker, you may as well swap out the hacker that most people use in their Spec Ops for something else, and Mine Layer is good. Nothing wrong with Mine Layer. Yao Zhao to help him out, of course. A couple of Shaolin monks. I really don't think you need any more than that. Otherwise, you're just going to have these traffic jams and they're going to be fighting for real estate. I don't know why there's the third group here. This may be a mess up, but since there's room in group 2, I personally can't think of any reason why you would want them in an additional group. Maybe there's some sort of strategy there in terms of mind games somehow that I'm not thinking of, but if they're both in group 2, it's the same as shifting them from group 1 or group 2 if you want them to have more orders. Otherwise it's just a waste of command tokens, really. You might occasionally have a situation where you land with a YuJing, and rather than move him from group 3 to group 2, you've already got a couple of orders to spare in group 2 which he can use. So the YuJing Special Operative Multi-Rifle, fine. Again, it's a big points investment. You've already got the Lieutenant Hacker there, so that's going to be free for the control jump if you're going to be putting up that support wear and going back in camo marker state. I think this is possibly one of the lists he would be using for counter measures. With the YuJing being a specialist, although maybe not, since I think you need more specific specialists than that in that particular mission. Hack Tower Missile Launcher, I think that the idea with the Hack Tower is that you should never take them all of the time, but neither should you never take them. Once your opponent starts to get more wary of hack towers and starts to really expect them and play around them, that's when they start to be a little bit weaker. But once your opponent sort of forgets about them, they become stronger. In this particular list, because you've got the YuJing off the table, your opponent can assume that the drop trooper has the SWCs and that there's also a ninja there as well. So he's quite well disguised, so I quite like that. If I got back into playing a lot of vanilla YuJing, I'd run this guy, and I actually take the hack tower missile launcher and invincible army as well. That's how I usually run him in the limit insertion list, along with the big pain train with the tactical awareness. So the all-important dice roll is made for first turn, which is quite significant, and I lose it. So my opponent grabs first turn, as he should. First turn's really important to get the momentum going and secure the designated targets in this one, so here we are. Alrighty, so I will be taking the table side over here, and he will be taking the table side over here, and he'll be going first. So we've got the Shasvastii on this side and the YuJing on this side. I want to point out that the location of his designated target will be there, and mine is going to be over here, just in case you want to sort of eyeball those locations now. I'm also going to have a Noctifer up in this tower, so we'll see some pictures of all that shortly. A view from, I believe this is my table edge. One important thing about this view, and I think I'll change to the orange color for this, I'll take this one here, is that my lieutenant is going to be inside of this little cave here, this little hut. And that's because once I put the mentor and the ambush marker there, there's no room for the YuJing to land and blow them up. I think that's quite important. And if I didn't already say so, I'm playing S1, which is the Shishkin list, of course. This is my opponent's deployment zone. You can see here that he's going to be putting his lieutenant here, plus his mine marker there, and forget who this guy is. He's going to have his hack tower deployed secretly here, and there you go. I think that's a Spec Ops actually there, which has a helper bot elsewhere in the field. That's his control device. He's got his designated target out in the field. That's a mine which belongs to the Liberto, which is over here. You can see Guangxi's around the back. All going to be going for it. Another helper bot back through here, and Mad Traps, of course, belonging to Zhuang. So this is another little look in this building, which sort of obscured from view. So you can see the Liberto there, and it's got his mine on the other side of this. I'm going to be putting my HVT over here. And I think the rules were changed recently such that HVTs don't get taken out by random mines and templates anymore if they're not targeted. Although this being the designated target, I'm not 100% sure how that actually works. Anyway, it doesn't actually come up. Let's move on. So there's his designated target in the midfield. This is his left-hand flank where we're seeing some deployments of Shaolin monks as well. The Guangxi control device up on top of the building. You can sort of see his Rushi in the far distance as well. We'll get to that. Here it is here, actually. So this is extreme right-hand flank where he's got the Rushi. This is a helper bot that belongs to, of course, his engineer Spec Ops. And then you can see Guangxi, Shaolin monks, Zhuang. Everything nicely spread out, really. It's a fairly dense table in some ways and open in others. And that's a Flash VaulSC bot he forgot to deploy. Reserve Trooper for me, the Noctifer on top of the big building, and that's partly because I'm going to be putting my designated target around here. I'm going to be covering this angle through there and through the side as well. I'm figuring, well, he can shoot me with a Rushi, but the important thing about the Noctifer is that he's going first, and if I reveal the Noctifer and then he just pumps up the Rushi with assisted fire, goes after the Noctifer straight away, those are orders he's having to use instead of just killing my designated target with his data tracker, running his data tracker away, and then securing his designated target, pulling it back. So the Rushi would take up quite a few orders to kill this thing, and might not even kill it unless it gets into close range. So I'd rather he did that than complete the mission. Extreme left-hand side of the battlefield for me, we've got Shishkin, that's going to be prone, T-drone through here, that's going to have a long, thin line of sight through that part of the battlefield. Spec Ops here, Tensho, Forward Observer, Icodrone at the back, Tiger Creatures out here. Also deploying my my Assault Hacker shrouded in front of the Link team, just in case he moves towards them with a Mo Wang or a Dao Fei or Rushi or whatever he may have, Lushing, that kind of thing. I just want to have that nearby to the Link team to help protect them in case of some sort of heavy unit. This is the top-down look at where the Link team was, so you can see further out that that is the shrouded assault hacker there. These consoles you're seeing out in the middle of the field, by the way, are just there from a previous mission that was played, I think, yesterday, the day before this game. Okay, midfield, you can see that's the little hut where I'm keeping the lieutenant, and then the tiger creatures are just really spread out over here with the R-drone right at the back to spot for drop troopers with its flash pulse. So mainly weighted towards the left-hand side of the table, although you can see a Nicodron over the right-hand side and another tiger creature there. Noctiferous on top of this little tower at the bottom right of the photo, and then there's the HVT designated target over there. My reserve troop is going to be a Caliban, which is going to deploy on that roof to make it look like I have an assault hacker there, but also because with Shishkin operating generally on this side of the table, I want my other powerful attack trooper to be over here to cover that side of the board and go after squishier targets that may happen to be there. Alright, so there is the designated target. Mo Wang is the reserve trooper. He's going to be the NCO. He's deploying opposite my designated target so we can go after it. This guy will be the data tracker. My opponent is starting to learn how to use his airbrush. I can't wait to see his improvements with it. I think that he's come a long way with his painting already, so there's only more improvement to make. There's my reserve trooper, of course, which is the Caliban MSV1 Spitfire. You might notice that with my acrylic 3D camera markers I've got from Bandua, I'm starting to swab some very watery paint on their bases just to help differentiate the actual figure from the base itself a little bit. I find that's quite helpful. Alright, so first turn we're moving forward with Impetuous, Shaolin Monks, Quang Shis, everybody's moving around. This one particular photo is kind of important because we've got one guy coming around the extreme left-hand flank. This is the extreme left-hand side of the table from his view, and the Noctifer is actually watching down here. I don't want to reveal the Noctifer too early, although I'm thinking about cranking him out once he gets around to this point, because if I kill this guy, that's going to slow down his efforts to bring smoke in through here. And I don't mind revealing the Noctifer now because there's also the hope that he spends some orders just dealing with the Noctifer in terms of throwing smoke, trying to get the Rushi out, rather than bringing his Mo Wang around from here to here just to kill my designated target. That's going to happen ultimately anyway, but anything I can do to slow him down will be a plus. We're forgetting to nominate our data trackers, so I'm doing that with Shishkin, putting a marker next to her, and of course he does that with his Mo Wang now. And then Mo Wang moving out. One thing that happened here is that as the Shaolin Monk was impetuousing through here, it fired a smoke grenade over to there, just because my opponent does suspect a Noctifer at every turn, and he doesn't want to get his Mo Wang hit by that Noctifer, so just laying the smokes down first. Elsewhere, just general impetuous move-outs, reshuffling. So here we go, Shaolin bringing itself around the corner towards a designated target, this spot over here. You can see he's just coming barely into line of sight here. This allows me to actually fire my stun pistol at him, and you can sort of see his location there. So I'm going to reveal the Noctifer at this point because I'm getting the double whammy, stun pistol and missile, and the hope is that that'll stop him from laying his template down and actually get rid of the Shaolin Monk there and force him to use other options to keep laying the smoke down in more convenient spots. So that happens. I believe that the stun pistol does go off in the Shaolin Monk. That does get to him at some point. He attempts to throw the smoke grenade and I think misses it. So what we're doing now is we're activating the Celestial Guard control device on top of the building nearby, and he's going to just poke barely around the corner and fire a smoke grenade down here. And my opponent's plan is to leave enough room through this spot where he can move his Mo Wang carefully around to here. He knows where the Noctifer is now, so once the Mo Wang comes next to this ladder, it'll actually have this little line through to where my designated target is. He'll be able to kill it and then move back around to safety. So that's generally the plan for this turn. So Celestial Guard does put the smoke down. You can see it there in the bottom right of this photo. Mo Wang now moving in. He can avoid the Noctifer at this point. So only thing left for him to do is just take this very thin line through here and just kill the designated target, which is what he's going for right now, with the help of the NCO orders. So beautiful shot lined up here, Red Fury against a designated target. Somehow I think I rolled a critical hit or something like that for the dodge, so that pulls him away momentarily, but we know that's not going to last. The Mo Wang just keeps spinning orders as he's moving back, so you know it really just slows him down a full 4 inches for the whole turn. Designated target dies. Then he's pulling back away and trying to get into cover. Now the awkward thing is he's sort of running out of orders, and there's, I mean, the best place to hide is around past this building, but he decides to put the Mowang behind this wall here, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. There we are. Okay, also moving out with the Rushi, he's landed a smoke grenade around here with one of his Shaolin monks, and further towards this part of the battlefield is Shishkin's link team. So we've got the Rushi moving up to the corner, and the Rushi is actually planning on firing at Shishkin. And interested to know what you guys think of that. We've got the Mowang coming up around the corner, and this is its final location. It is a bit exposed from this point through to that side of the battlefield. Okay, so this is very far away from his table edge. Okay, so here's the Rushi. It's got a smoke template in front of it, and what the Rushi is about to do now is about to fire at Agent Shishkin, and my opponent possibly momentarily forgetting maybe that Shishkin is got 6th Sense level 1, so she won't suffer the penalty of firing back through smoke. She's only a link team. Both of them are between 12 to 8 to 24 inches, so we're both at +3 range. He's got assisted fire, so that'll be -3. It'll be ignoring the -3 from cover. We can see that momentarily the YuJing lieutenant is activating to place that assisted fire through the Rushi's own repeater, and then going back into camo state with the second lieutenant's order. In fact, the Mowang's probably spent all those orders anyway. He just has enough regular orders left to do that, so carrying on. Right, so Rushing fire at Shishkin. Here it is here, because she's got a very thin line through there. So let's talk about it. It's 4 dice on 15s to hit Shishkin, because even though she's got a nanoscreen, the assisted fire will just ignore any cover. Rushi, 15s on 4 dice. Shishkin, 18s on 2 dice. So I think the Rushi's got a very slight advantage here. The only reason why I think it's okay to do this is that the engineer's there and the helper bot's there to repair the Rushi if something goes wrong. The only problem with it is that if you reach the end of your turn and the Rushi is not repaired for some reason, like you spend the last order shooting at Shishkin and you go unconscious, well, you're just going to lose your Rushi for nothing there. I've deliberately had Shishkin standing up here because she's going to be firing on very good odds at just about anything, and she's got 2 wounds, the doctor's nearby, so worst case scenario I think is that she drops unconscious from 2 shots, but it's very unlikely that'll happen. What I'm trying to goad my opponent into doing here is just spending some ineffectual orders that won't actually net any real points by firing at Shishkin, rendering her, say, taking a wound off her, for example, and just knocking her back into cover, and not actually killing anything else with that turn. So when it comes back to my turn, I'll have plenty of orders to work with. I'll be able to pick off the easier to kill targets in his army list and wear him down to a point where at the end of the game, hopefully I'm ahead on points. He's killed his data tracker with he's killed my designated target with his data tracker. I might be able to do the same for him. The other thing I want you guys to realize is that he's got his designated target right over there. And he's not moving it, as you probably should in this game, in this turn, in this mission. So if the Rushi doesn't kill Shishkin, it's going to have to retreat over there. And once it's done that, Shishkin can then move out around here and use this point to fire at his data tracker, but also his Mowang, as we're going to see soon. His Mowang's way over in the distance there. So he's giving me an opportunity to kill his designated target with my data tracker to even up the score. We'll go up 3 each. And then if Shishkin destroys his Mowang, he'll really be losing, right? Because I haven't really lost any models at this point, and for him to be down that massive trooper, and possibly a Rushi as well, that's not a great look. What actually happens here, though, is the Rushi does get very lucky and actually completely renders Shishkin unconscious. So 15s on 4 dice versus 18s on 2 dice, and he gets enough hits through that Shishkin fails enough saves that she goes completely unconscious, which was really unlucky for me. That was really painful, because now I have to restore her, and I've got to repair the link team. It's not great. It's going to cost me extra orders, and that was really annoying. So we also have the Rushi moving out around here, trying to pick up some shots on various creatures and things, but not managing to find it. So pushing back. I think that what happens here is that he actually even tries to go for the Noctifer. I can't remember whether that happened in this particular round. No, I don't think it did actually. So He had 1 or 2 more orders left, pulled back around here, and I believe went into suppression fire at the end. And even this I kind of disagree with, leaving the Rushi in a spot to actually be seen and see enemy troopers at the end of your turn. There are so many ways that Shasvastii can potentially find to take advantage of that, but we'll talk more about that. So here we are, Rushi on this side of the table, extreme right hand side. We've got the Mowang over here. He's putting into everything to suppression fire right now. So you can see his designated target through the middle that has not been moved. There's still a mine here, there's still a Liberto on the other side of this building, and just chucking things into suppression fire, which I don't really think is the right thing to do this early in the game. But we'll see how that goes. So my turn now, I have tiger creatures moving towards him. This one here really has no choice but to go directly into the suppression fire, so for the suppression fire that definitely works over here and kills this. But I've got another one coming from this angle, which is able to actually move in such a way that it's going to get there and come into line of sight and be able to use its chain cult, which is not good news. He does have his engineer there to repair it, but this is going to be happening at the beginning of my turn, so it might make it easier for me to destroy that particular Rushi. So here you go, they're pulling in, using their kinematica and their hyperdynamics to dodge, but eventually we get to a point, this is, sorry, the extreme right-hand flank here, where the 5th tiger creature comes around on this side. The Shallow Monk is dead, I think, and this guy's basically going here for the Discover. He's going to fail the Discover, do an intuitive attack, and reveal this Liberto in a moment. So that's the, even though they have quite low willpower, my opponent goes for the dodge, because he's very good at dodging, and then I simply just walk into close combat there and attack him. I don't know, I feel like maybe the Liberto's better option there would have been to just ignore the Discover attempt, because there's, I think, a good 40% chance that that fails and he can keep his Liberto there. And since I've failed my Discover and my attempt to intuitive attack at that point, he can't reveal it. Another way you can do it is just place a mine as a response, because he knows he's going to get berserked if he's discovered or attacked by the intuitive attack. So I feel like this may have been misplayed very slightly. Either way, there's still a pretty good chance of surviving the dodge, which he does. Not a very good chance of surviving the berserk though, so he does lose his Liberto at that point. Now, the next thing that happens is that I activate my link team, because I want to move my doctor over to revive Shishkin. And this is where the Hacktail strikes, and this is of course an extremely important moment in the game. So I'm spending an order. The link leader is my Spec Ops. I've left a T-drone with a very thin line of fire from that doorway through to this part of the battlefield. My opponent decides to take advantage of that with a shot here from his Hacktail. Bearing in mind that it's a 14 or less, so very, very good chance. But if, what is it, a 30% chance that this guy misses, if I got that right, 30%, then that's pretty bad, because now I know where he is and I can easily avoid him, and I've got a T-drone there. So it's a bit risky, but it's definitely worth doing. In this position I would have fired the Hacktail as well, so I think it's a correct move. Let's look at what happens. So it's the Spec Ops activating. Because it's my active turn, I get to just dodge on as a normal fizz check. The T-drone's also dodging, but at a -3 for being a robot. And the missile lands home, but I actually win the roll with my fizz check because it's a crit. I want you to leave aside the fact that it actually was a crit, because a crit normally implies that I'm doing damage to my opponent. It's a really lucky thing. In reality, had he rolled a 1 to hit and I rolled a 2, that would be the same result. Or if he rolled a 4 and I'd rolled an 8, it would have been the same result. At the end of the day, it's just a 14 to hit versus a 10 to hit. So chances are that he will win this, but there's also a 30% chance that he'll miss completely, and that it wouldn't have mattered if I dodged or not, because then I can break apart the link team and keep doing it. So I got a little bit lucky here with my Spec Ops, and note that the Spec Ops is crawling. It's just that because the T-drone has been activated, that the template lands there and collects him. So because I did manage to dodge successfully, I can continue walking past here and revive Shishkin. Maybe not time to revive the link team, better to keep the Spec Ops here, but he has revealed his Hacktail, and now I know what I'm up against. But I have lost a T-drone. T-drone's not crucially expensive in this list. I think he's worth sub 20 points, but I am going to have to make up the points somehow. So moving over here, Shishkin is revived here from this doctor, and the game can continue. But good play there by my opponent, and I did get a little bit lucky. Had I been unlucky there and lost the Spec Ops, then this would have been a really hard game to win. In fact, it's almost impossible to win at that point. But note that I also did get very unlucky to have Shishkin go unconscious in the first place. So if you think about that, I've started out getting unlucky, then I've got a little bit lucky, so that kind of variance is balancing out a little bit. Tiger creatures continuing to move around. So this time moving through here, and my opponent going for just the shot. So instead of dodging or something like that, he's just allowing me to fire the Chain Colt over the Rushi. Again, I don't know if this is the right thing to do. He's got his doctor there, and he is -3 to dodge. I think it's still better to go for the dodge, because I've got to spend more orders on the tiger creature. There are other ways you can kill it. There is a mad trap going off on him. The hack tower is going to get line of sight at some point, I believe. But he did decide to shoot back, and I did fire the chain rifle, and he did pass the armor save on the chain colt, I should be saying. So a bit lucky there on the Rushi. Passes the armor save, and that's annoying, because if I'd managed to just destroy that, I may have been able to come around and actually take out his Palbot or do something to actually stop him from using the Rushi in the following turn to deal with the Noctifer. The Noctifer is quite an important piece here, because I've still got a good rain of fire around the battlefield, and it's not exactly like the Hack Tower and the Noctifer are going to be shooting each other. There's the Mad Trap going off onto Mr. Tiger Creature. Alrighty, the other Tiger Creature on the other side going to detonate the mine, does dodge it successfully with his hyperdynamics and gets away. We then have, on this side, I was thinking of actually standing up and moving out with the Caliban. So initially I was actually playing a couple of orders here, but my opponent pointed out to me that he actually has a Celestial Guard which can actually see down here somewhere that I'd have to contend with. So after questioning him about the positioning, I ended up pulling this marker back, and we didn't do that after all. What we are doing is moving out with Shishkin, and what she's going to be doing is avoiding the Hack Tower, which she can with her line of sight, and she's going to be tracing a line of fire through to my opponent's designated target and to the Mowang. And this should be a really clutch play right here. So we get to this point. Let's just point out where everything is. I'm gonna change colors for a sec here. So there's a designated target. That thing's not going to survive against Shishkin. We've got a Mowang in the distance, and at this specific angle, the Mowang will have cover. So it'll be long range cover and mimetism -9. I'll be needing 6s if I recall correctly, unless it was super long range, in which case it would be 3s. I'm splitting burst here, firing 1 shot into the designated target and 3 shots into the Mowang, which is just dodging at this point. He'd be up against long range and the nano screen, and dodging, he's more likely to block the hits at the end of the day, so he's dodging here. So the first shot connects with a designated target, and frustratingly, it passes the armor save, so a bit unlucky there. Shishkin blapping 3 shots at the Mowang, not getting any crits despite Fatality level 2, but you can't always get crits. Continuing now, moving again, firing another shot into the designated target, killing it, putting me up 3 points on the board. We're even on that. Continuing to fire at the Mowang and eventually getting a hit on it. I can actually get Shishkin to a point where the Mowang does not get cover once I angle it out correctly, so her chances of hitting him go up higher. Now, frustratingly, over the next, I think, 4 orders, it must have been, I kept hunting him down and he kept dodging. He's dodging on a 14, and he started rolling some crits, which, or at least 1 crit, I should say, which is annoying, because if I get crits as well, it doesn't actually cut through. So Shishkin's sort of dancing left and right and firing at him, and you can see his position there. He's now out in the open. So, at most, -9 from Shishkin here, if you factor super long range and his mimetism. But when you're throwing 4 dice needing 6s against 1 dice needing 14s, you are expecting either your opponent to fail some of the time and for you to get a couple of hits through, or for Shishkin to pull out some crits when you're doing this over like 4 or 5 orders. But frustratingly, Shishkin didn't actually kill him. He managed to get through the turn, going into NWI, only taking 2 wounds, which was a pain. I think I got like 1 crit out of all of those attempts, and he got at least 1 crit with his dodge. He also passed an ungodly number of armor saves as well. So this is a really important moment of the game where if he had lost his Mo Wang, I actually pulled him to the lead in terms of points, or at least I will do after we cut out a few of the extra Shaolin monks and Guangxi over the course of the game. The Hacktail still needs to be dealt with, but I don't necessarily have to deal with him. I can use this flank down the bottom here to chip away at him and win the game that way, but not killing the Mo Wang is a big deal. So Shishkin runs back over here and with the last order or two manages to sort of escape back to this point here. And we're giving her a token. You can also see the victorious Mo Wang way in the distance. Just didn't manage to take him out. Okay, also retreating this tiger creature back here, wherever it was. And we can move to YuJing turn 2. So there's the Mo Wang. He's just hanging out around the back. He's moving up with his Guangxi impetuously now, so we're taking the lid off the building just so we can facilitate that movement around. We've got more Shaolin monks and things throwing smoke and doing what they do best, impetuous and smoke. This one moving a bit closer to his friend here so he can plant down a smoke grenade and go after the Noctifer. So that's why this is going down here. He's then able to pull out around here. Note, we've also got some tiger creatures dodging back behind cover to avoid him as he's doing so. So Rushi pulling out again gaining assisted fire from the lieutenant. He's able to fire through here and nail this member of my link team. This was as I was moving out as part of the link, and this was where the missile hit. So that obviously detonated my link team, leaving this guy exposed. So the Rishi firing through here and removing my, I think it's a 15-point Fort Observer. Then what he's able to do is move out and around, and he's ultimately going to be going after this Noctifer up here, right? Now, this is a little bit risky. Bear in mind, you're still playing around with a 20-point model here, and he's going to be firing long range against this Noctifer, so that'll drop him down to 9s to hit. Whereas the Noctifer firing through smoke will also need 9s to hit, if I'm not mistaken. +3 to hit, -6 for smoke, and he's in the good range band, whereas the Rushi's not. So when you've got 4 dice, you wouldn't normally expect to lose this, but there is a sizable portion of the time where things just go wrong. The Noctifer wins and the Rushi dies, or if the Noctifer does go for the dodge, it gets through, or maybe the Noctifer just takes a single hit through that face-to-face roll, passes it, and ducks behind cover, in which case you've cost your opponent some orders and you haven't lost a very expensive trooper. That's a pretty big swing. As fate would happen to have it, though, the Rushi does win and the Noctifer does die. The shot cuts through Doggett, of course, and that's that. As he's moving forward, though, I managed to catch him with a very clever, placement of my Shrouded Assault Hacker, and I am going to go for an Oblivion. And the Oblivion is, even though he's got a Lieutenant Hacker there, I feel like the Lieutenant coming out of Marcus State to go after me here through the Repeater does give him the chance of killing the Shrouded, but it's probably better not to reveal him at that point, just in case I've got a Malignos, a Killer Hacker sitting around or something like that. If you count up my army list really expertly, I guess you can figure out that I don't have it. But here's the point where we reveal the Shrouded Assault Hacker anyway, going for the Oblivion on the Rushi, and he's not using his Lieutenant to make use of the Repeater to punish me in any way for that. I can't remember if Oblivion also disrupts your comms devices or whatever it is. I think that's Blackout. But anyway, the Shrouded completely whiffs their first attempt, and he goes after one of my Tiger creatures here, and eventually goes after Shishkin. So moving through here to try and nail Shishkin, this will be quite decisive if it works. Shishkin firing back needing an 18, and the Rushi needing, I think, 15s at this range band. So similar sort of face that we had before. The Hacker going for another Oblivion attempt again, and Shishkin does manage to get a bit lucky here and take out the Rushi. So, I mean, she is hitting on 18s after all, right? So you can expect a fairly sizable portion of the time she's going to be doing it. Not more than 50%, of course, but there's a decent chunk of the time that she's going to be winning that. And the Rishi only has this last attempt because there's a Chain Cult going off, there's an Oblivion going off, that kind of thing. So Shishkin saved by her gun. but unfortunately couldn't kill the Mo Wang earlier. So there you go, Rushi down. Mo Wang now realizing that he represents a huge chunk of points and he's pulling back behind this building, so just retreating. We've also got some more movement and shuffling from Spec Ops and YuJing and other chaps around here. There's a Mad Trap coming in range of my Shrouded. Of course, that will only go off if I actually activate the Shrouded. Other than that, though, just a rounding out of the turn, repositioning everybody, going back into camo for whoever can. That's somebody actually standing in the doorway there, going into suppression fire. I believe that's I think YuJing himself, if he does have a combi rifle. And Mo Wang not quite hiding back behind this grey building. I feel like this is a mistake. He does need to keep this guy in as much total cover as possible, just given the number of points he represents. So coming to my turn, we've got the target creatures yet again moving out, trying to detonate some Mad Traps wherever possible. Note that if they get glued from the Mad Traps, they're not going to give up any points. My Caliban now started up on top of that building there. He's going to crawl down and move over to here. This was a corpse of a Shaolin monk from the start of the game. I'm going to coup de grace the corpse and gain this power-up token, so this is a Caliban with 2 wounds. We're then moving over in the direction of this Mo Wang, and sadly, there's no way past this cube here. So what I'm going to have to do is move through here first, fire at the Guangxi, 4 dice, you know, you should be able to kill him. Then I'm going to have to move past and possibly take on a Celestial Guard. And then I'm going to be able to destroy this Mo Wang if luck has it, you know, that I can. But this is a pretty powerful turn that I'm going to be able to take here. This is, I think, my turn 2. So netting 1 Guangxi, Celestial Guard, and a Mo Wang should actually throw the points back my way. Pretty big deal. So here he comes, moving in, spraying the Guangxi. The Guangxi takes like 4 hits to the chest, and unbelievably passes the armor saves except for one and goes dogged, which was really frustrating because I need a lot of orders to be able to pull this off. So just really cursing under my breath here that I'm getting so unlucky this game. Moving through, the second attempt does kill the Guangxi, and now I have to take on this guy. Now, this is not a sure thing because he does have suppression fire, but the advantage for me here is that it's long-range suppression fire, so he's up against cover, long-range, and camo, so -9, whereas I'm basically plus range, minus cover, minus suppression, so I'm hitting on 9s on 4 dice, so this little shootout does eventually win it for me, although it may have taken 1 more order than it should have. I can't quite remember that specific exchange. What I do remember, though, is the Caliban moves next to the cover, pokes around the corner, and goes for the Mo Wang. So, in a situation like this, I've picked the perfect model. I've got MSV1, I've got a Spitfire, he's got a Red Fury. Neither of us are going to, outrange each other in terms of the advantages there. I've got cover, he doesn't have cover. I've got 4 dice. He did put himself into suppression fire, though, so we do have to take that on. But still, I mean, with suppression fire, he's still going to be -6, I think it is. And I'm going to have 4 dice, and I've got the advantage of cover, he doesn't. So after blasting him after 2 attempts, my opponent passes all armor saves, incredibly, and survives, which I felt was not ridiculously unlucky, but very frustratingly unlucky, that I couldn't even kill that Mo Wang at the end of that turn with a good couple of orders to pump into him to do that. So having to poke back here and just cover the edge, because I know that I'm going to get attacked by lots of different things. So in his final turn, the Guangxi moving out, I'm dodging. I've got Kinematica level 2, so I'm trying to take advantage of the Guangxi being there to dodge all the way back. Note that I've gone from 2 wounds down to 1 wound because of the earlier Guangxi continuously chain rifling me. His other Guangxi moving over here, I've got my Shrouded just sitting here waiting, not doing anything. The YuJing shows up, and his plan here is to use control jump to land next to my Spec Ops and hit him with a blast template. I have to use hack transport at this point, and if I do, I can't dodge. So that happens, and the explosion goes off and does kill my Spec Ops, which is a big deal because I needed the Spec Ops to revive the T-drone to bring some points back. So good play there from my opponent, but also not really the best player either because he's landed too close to my my Icadron, which is behind this grey building on the other side. So I promptly hit him with an Oblivion or something like that, or Carbonite, and that shuts down the YuJing straight off the bat, so he can't actually activate him, which will mean that in my final turn I can attack this YuJing and kill it and just gain a wad of points. So bit of a misplay there by my opponent in terms of scouting the board and placement. Hack Tao moving around, just repositioning, just to set up to protect his troops for the final run. Guangxi going after the Caliban, and again Caliban dodging away with his ability to do that. It's quite good. So dodges all the way back here, but of course that's going to mean that he's going to move in with his Moang later. This one Shaolin Monk trading with my Tiger Creature, not a bad idea. 5 points for 7 points, or 6 points as it may be, so a small swing with a Chain Colt versus Chain Rifle. Another Guangxi moving a bit closer to a Shishkin, although he doesn't really have the orders to bring the Guangxi around here, and neither should he really. He's unlikely to get Shishkin. What he's spending the orders on instead is the Moang coming after my Caliban, and I was really hoping like hell it would be a situation where I suddenly get lucky after my horrific run of bad luck with this particular model and manage to kill him, but that's not what happens. The Moang, of course, blasting me, removing my 40-point model, and surviving to the end of the game. Final turn, you've got the Tiger, again, exchanging with the Shaolin here. I don't think they managed to kill each other with the Chain Colt, so we're just moving in and doing it in close combat instead. The YuJing has been isolated, so the other Tiger moving towards him to try and berserk him or Chain Colt him, but that not really working. So we tried with a Tencho Trooper from up on top of the building here, just blasting him in the back with the AP rounds from the SMG. That doesn't work either. So we've got Shishkin still in a spot where she can't really move out too much because otherwise the YuJing's actually covering her, and she doesn't want to get hit by a multi-rifle round. So we're coming in the back with the Ikadron, and finally this guy actually does manage to do it with his flamethrowers and blast this guy in the rear with his flamethrowers, killing him. Thank God for being an Ikadron, right? Shishkin now can move out and go after this Guangxi. Because she's got Prathion, it allows her to gain a wound, even if he blows up. She's not going to necessarily die, but unfortunately she gets shot at by a flash pulse at the end of the game, which does stun her and shuts her down, so she can't spend the remaining couple of orders going and getting more kills. So that ends the game, and my opponent wins on points narrowly, which was frustrating because although I did have some definite lucky moments during this game, my opponent had a lot more of them, and in matters where they were, I think, a bit more important. But we'll review that in a moment. We'll just take a quick look at the scoreboard here. So my opponent during that game did lose his YuJing, and he did lose one of the Shaolin Monks. In fact, he lost both of them. He did keep his Spec Ops alive and his Lieutenant alive. The Liberto did die. He kept his Flash Pulse Spot alive, as YuJing was alive. The Rushi was killed in the end. The Moang wasn't. And I would have killed at least one Guangxi, if not more than that. So I think he would have had about 217 left. I'm just going to quickly open up my list, just so we can do the count, because I want to talk to you guys about what it would have taken for it to have swung the other way, because I think that does actually matter. So here's S1, the list that I was running in that event. So I lost pretty much every Tiger Creature, possibly this one as well. I didn't lose the Ikadrons though, or the R-Drone. The Mentor Lieutenant was fine, didn't lose the Hacker. I did lose the Caliban. I did lose the Noctifer. I did lose the T-Drone. I lost my Spec Ops. I lost my Forward Observer as well. Got shot by the Rushi. So I had 154 points left there. So you can see how that could have been close, right? If we go back to his list and remove the Moang, and we go back to my list and we add back the Caliban, MSV1 Caliban, you can see that I'm left with 194 points to his 165. So even if we give or take some Tiger Creatures or Guangxi, we know that that would have been a win. So imagine in that final turn, the Caliban activates, moves around, gains the extra wound from the corpse of the Shaolin Monk, shoots the next Guangxi with one order, beats the Celestial Guard as well, and then goes after the Moang and kills it. That would have meant that I would have won, so long as his Guangxi hadn't come out of the building and managed to kill me, but my chances of avoiding him were pretty good. If I'd lost the Caliban as well, at the end from him taking me out, it would have been 154 to 165, so it's more about whether my Spec Ops would have survived, or if I could have revived the T-Drone somehow, that kind of thing. So that would have been a much more close, interesting game. If earlier in the piece he'd just lost his Moang because he, failed one additional save that, he should have then that I'm pretty sure would have been a win to me, because then I wouldn't have needed to put my Caliban in any risky spots. I would have been able to move around and pick things off a lot more comfortably, and Shishkin could have gone back to safety a lot more easily. Or even a situation where he had simply got a bit unlucky with his Rushi against my Noctifer. That would have caused him to lose as well. So I'm not saying that I played particularly well or my opponent played particularly badly. I thought we both played pretty well this game. I mean, like any other game of infiNity, you're going to see a lot of variance. One guy's going to get lucky, the other guy's going to get lucky. So it was fair. It was a pretty solid fight. Coming back through it though, I mean, ultimately, who actually played better this game? Like, all things considered. I am going to say here that I did, but not by much, just because my opponent made a couple of small errors, I think. The positioning of his Mo Wang at the end of turn 1 and the end of turn 2 allowed me the chance to fire at him with a Shishkin, and he should have been able to see that angle. And also with the Caliban later on, he didn't know that I had a Caliban, but he should have known that, you know, there was the opportunity for me to lose that. So there was that. He didn't spend his second turn bringing his designated target to safety, which I think is probably the way to play it. If you want to get a major win, you know, you want to try and deprive your opponent of that. His decision to attack Shishkin with the Rushi earlier into the piece, I don't really mind that, because he had the extra orders to revive it. So at this stage in the game here, I don't really mind that, because he could have actually engineered his guy, and there's no way that I could have really removed him off the table, because I'm only firing two shots at any given time. I thought the position of his hack tower was well played, and his decision to reveal it then was good, and I got lucky not to insta-lose the game right there. But again, he got lucky to have killed Shishkin. What would have happened this game is if the hack tower just blown me up there, but Shishkin had still been alive because she just passed a guts check, gone into cover, or, you know, passed an armor saved guts into cover, and I'd moved out with Shishkin there in later in the game. Let's say the hack tower blows up the T-drone and the Spec Ops, but in my turn Shishkin kills the Mo Wang. Well, who wins the game out from there? Probably me. The other thing is leaving his Rushi here at this point for my Tiger Creature to go after. I felt like that wasn't great. What I would have done is, after my first turn as YuJing, I probably would have kept the Rushi back and not tried to sort of just use suppression fire on a couple of warbands. It's just not worth it, because this is such an important piece. He hasn't actually killed the Noctifer at this point in the game, and what you don't want is having to, you know, deal with a Noctifer every time you move out with some impetuous trooper. Like, he starts just cleaning them up. So not wonderful. In terms of my play, I mean, there might be a few errors here and there. I almost forgot to say that the YuJing, I think the army list was good, but the decision to land the YuJing at that specific spot wasn't really the best. He might have even tried going for Shishkin or something if he was worried about being assault hacked. Although she probably was too close to the assault hacker as well. It's hard to gauge that distance. So, any mistakes there were minor. I'm not saying these were huge blunders. I got lucky here with Shishkin, so we have to acknowledge that to survive here. But again, would she have needed to do that if she had been a little bit lucky earlier? It's a good question to ask. The other thing about this situation is that my opponent got lucky to survive the first Oblivion because it was a free Oblivion, and the second order I got lucky to not lose Shishkin and take him out in return. So it was a fairly even trade on a lot of that. Was a good game, pretty fun game. It wasn't really enjoyable during those moments where I was just getting hammered by the dice. And this, of course, this endgame situation was more likely to have gone my way than not, but it didn't, so there you have it. So losing the game going into Game 4, but we still have an opportunity in Game 5. My opponent goes to the top of the standings after this one, but if for some reason he gets thrashed in the final round and I win 10-0 in my final round, I could actually win the tournament. So you still have to play your best to go into that final round with a positive attitude. We'll be posting that bat rep soon, so don't miss it. I'll see you guys in the next one.